Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to connect the dots between some really critical global hotspots. We're talking a sudden, super fragile truce in Eastern Europe, some incredibly tense ceasefire talks in the Middle East, and even a shadowy naval standoff way up in the North Atlantic. It really paints a picture of a world that is, well, on edge. So here's how we're going to break it down. We'll kick things off with that surprising Easter truce in Ukraine. Then we'll jump over to the Middle East, where you've got ceasefires and conflict happening literally at the same time. After that, we're going to explore NATO's northern standoff with Russia. And to wrap it all up, we'll zoom out and look at a bigger pattern of global unrest. So let's get right into it. Okay, first up, Ukraine. Out of nowhere, in the middle of this incredibly intense conflict, a surprise temporary ceasefire for Easter has been declared. But, the story of how this all came together, that's what really reveals the complex game being played. I mean, check out the whiplash on this timeline. Just a week ago, Zelensky suggests a truce, and Moscow basically laughs it off, calling it a PR stunt. Then, boom, Putin orders a 32-hour pause. Kiev not only says yes within 2 hours, but then comes back and proposes making it indefinite. That kind of rapid 180 really makes you wonder, what on earth changed? And right in the middle of these truce talks, President Zelensky took a moment to fire back at some comments from U.S. Senator J.D. Vance, who had apparently downplayed the importance of the land being fought over. And as you can see from this quote, Zelensky's response was this really powerful reminder that for Ukraine, this isn't just about lines on a map. It's about the 200,000 real people who live there. This slide really just highlights the huge disconnect in what they're saying publicly. On one hand, you have Zelensky saying, hey, I'm ready for direct talks with Putin. But then Russia's foreign minister, Sergei Lavrov, just throws cold water on the whole thing, saying mediators are, busy with other matters. It just shows you there's a massive gap between their official positions on actually negotiating. Okay, so now let's shift our focus over to the Middle East. This is a region that is perpetually on a razor's edge, and right now there's another set of incredibly high-stakes ceasefire talks going on, this time between the U.S. and Iran. This whole thing is just a super complex diplomatic dance. You've got President Trump announcing a 2-week ceasefire so they can talk in Islamabad, but at the same time, he's demanding military backup from his allies to secure the Strait of Hormuz. And then Iran comes back with a huge condition: the U.S. has to get Israel to stop its strikes on Lebanon. It's like a chain of demands that could just shatter at any moment. And if you want to understand the stakes of Iran's condition, just look at this number. Israel's defense minister is claiming 1,400 Hezbollah casualties since their Eternal Darkness operation began. That is a staggering figure, and it shows you just how intense the fighting is that Iran wants the U.S. to put a stop to. This slide perfectly captures the absolute chaos on the ground. I mean, you've got public calls for a ceasefire and de-escalation coming from all sides: Israel, the U.S., even Netanyahu himself. But at the exact same time, the Israeli army is telling people in Beirut to evacuate and is launching brand new strikes. The words and the actions are in total contradiction. It's wild. From the Middle East, let's pivot way north, where a much, much colder conflict is brewing. Tensions are seriously ratcheting up between Russia and NATO in the North Atlantic, and it's all revolving around accusations of sabotage against critical infrastructure deep under the sea. This is just a classic information war. On one side, you have Russian state media accusing Norway, a NATO member, of helping Ukraine attack Russian ships. And on the other side, the UK and Norway are saying, whoa, no, we just spent weeks stopping Russian subs from sabotaging our critical underwater cables. So both sides are pointing fingers, accusing the other of being the aggressor in the exact same stretch of water. And right after that anti-sabotage operation, the UK's defense secretary issued this incredibly public and direct warning to Vladimir Putin. I mean, he is making it crystal clear. We see you, and we will not tolerate any attempt to mess with our infrastructure. So what was Moscow's response? A pretty blatant show of force. They sent the warship Admiral Grigorovich to escort sanctioned oil tankers right through the English Channel, with a British warship tailing them. Experts are calling this a deliberate test of Britain's resolve, a very public challenge right in their own backyard. All right, for our final section, let's pull the camera back, because beyond these specific flashpoints, you can see a broader pattern of instability and just shifting public opinion emerging all over the globe. This Politico poll data really suggests the transatlantic alliance is under some serious strain. Just look at these numbers. A majority in Spain, 51%, now view the US as a threat. It's almost half in Italy. But then you have Poland, a complete outlier at just 13%. This reveals a pretty significant fracture in how key European allies are seeing the United States. And you know, this conflict is also being fought in the shadows. Ukraine's SBU claims it busted a Russian FSB plot to assassinate officials in Odessa. Then, in a clear tit-for-tat move, Russia's FSB announces they've arrested a journalist in Moscow, accusing them of spying for the SBU. It's a real spy versus spy battle playing out in the background of the war. And this feeling of instability is popping up in all sorts of ways. In Ireland, protests over fuel prices got so big the army had to be called in. In Kazakhstan, they're so strapped for cash they had to cancel a major military parade. And in the US, an employee allegedly got so desperate over low pay that they caused up to $200 million in damage. These are all just signs of systems under a whole lot of stress. So, that brings us to the big, looming question. As we see these temporary ceasefires popping up in some places while tensions are exploding in others, you have to ask, are these pauses actual, genuine steps towards peace, or are they just tactical moves in a much larger, much more volatile global chess game? What happens when the clock runs out?